My fiancé called me his dear friend at our engagement party. I smiled, walked out, and 2 days later he froze when I walked into lunch. My fiancé said, "Don't call me your future husband." I nodded. That night, I quietly removed my name from every guest list he had made. 2 days later, he walked into lunch and froze when he saw me sitting there with the folder that could end everything. But before that, before the lunch, before the collapse, before he finally understood exactly who he had been humiliating, there was the envelope on my chair at the Watergate Hotel ballroom. It was black leather, embossed with gold lettering, the kind of expensive detail Victor loved because it photographed well. "Open it," my fiancé said from the podium, grinning into the microphone like he had planned a charming little surprise for the crowd. I stood there in that ballroom with 300 people staring at me, and I felt my throat close. This was supposed to be my engagement celebration. Our engagement celebration, but Victor had not introduced me as his fiancé. He had called me my dear friend Taylor 4 separate times in the past hour. Now he was pointing at me like I was part of the evening's entertainment. "Go on, Taylor," he said, smiling wider. "Open it. I promise it's not a breakup letter." The room laughed. I picked up the envelope. My hands were steady, which surprised me. Inside was a single card on heavy, expensive stock. It read, "Thank you for your generous support of Victor Chen's mayoral campaign. Your contribution of $850,000 has been noted. We look forward to your continued patronage." Under that, in Victor's own handwriting, he had written, "You've been such a good little donor. Don't worry. I'll find someone worthy of standing beside me." The room went silent. I looked up at Victor. He was still smiling, waiting for me to react, waiting for me to break down, waiting for me to make a scene he could use later, the kind of scene where he could tell people, "She got emotional. Poor thing." Instead, I smiled back. "You're right," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the ballroom. "You do need someone worthy." Then I walked out. Behind me, I heard confused murmuring. I heard Victor call my name in that smooth, concerned public voice he used for cameras. I kept walking. In the parking garage, I got into my 12-year-old Subaru Outback, sat there while rain tapped against the windshield, and made 3 phone calls. The first was to my attorney, Garrett Morrison. "Garrett, it's Taylor Ashford. Execute the extraction protocol for Victor Chen. Everything, immediately." Garrett Morrison had been my family's attorney for 23 years. He was a former federal prosecutor and a current partner at Morrison & Hale. He did not ask me if I was sure. He only said, "Understood." "The Super PAC funding?" I said. "Terminate it tonight before midnight." "The campaign headquarters lease?" "His name is on it, but my trust owns the building." "Initiate eviction proceedings. Give him the legal minimum notice." The staff salaries are paid through the Chen Campaign Fund, and that fund is funded entirely by the Ashford Foundation. "Cut off all transfers." "And the media consultant contracts?" "Void them," Garrett said. "Breach of moral character clause." "I'll send you the documentation," I said, and hung up. The second call was to my cousin, Dr. Naomi Ashford, Chief of Staff at Georgetown University Hospital. She had been asking me to join the hospital's board of directors for 2 years. "Naomi," I said, "I'm ready to accept that board position, but there's something you need to know about one of your donors first." The third call was to my grandfather, Harrison Ashford III, former Secretary of Commerce, current CEO of Ashford Holdings, and the kind of man who had presidents on speed dial. "Taylor," he said warmly, "how's the engagement party?" "It's over." Silence. Then he asked, "What happened?" He called me his dear friend in front of 300 people, then made a joke about how much money I've given his campaign. My grandfather was quiet for one more beat. Then he said, "That boy has no idea who you are, does he?" "No, sir." "Good. Keep it that way until tomorrow. Then burn his entire house down. Legally." "Already started," he laughed, a sharp, satisfied sound. "That's my granddaughter. Call me when it's done." I drove home in the rain, watching the Washington Monument disappear behind fog, and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. The problems had started 8 months earlier, though I did not recognize them at the time. I met Victor at a Georgetown fundraiser. He was running for city council then. Young, ambitious, photogenic, the kind of candidate who looked good on posters and spoke in sound bites that tested well with focus groups. I was there representing my family's foundation. We had donated to the venue. Quiet money, with no recognition expected. Victor approached me first. You look bored, he said, holding a glass of champagne. Networking events aren't my thing, I said. What is your thing? Urban development policy. Specifically, affordable housing initiatives. He blinked. Seriously? I wrote my thesis on it. Johns Hopkins, public policy program. His smile shifted then. It became genuine. That's actually what my campaign is focused on. Have you read the Morrison report on housing displacement? We talked for 2 hours. He was smart. He was well-informed. He was passionate about the right things. When he asked for my number, I gave it to him. Our first date was at a Thai restaurant in Adams Morgan. He insisted on splitting the check and said he did not believe in traditional gender roles or the expectation that men should always pay. I respected that. Our second date was a walk through the National Arboretum. He talked about his vision for D.C., affordable housing, education reform, and police accountability. He had plans, real plans, detailed plans. I fell for his vision before I fell for him. By month 3, we were serious. He met my parents, or rather, he met my parents believing they were retired teachers, which was technically true. They had both taught economics before my grandfather recruited them into the family business. Victor never asked what the family business was. I did not volunteer the information. Operational security. Keep your private life private. Never let people treat you differently because of your name. Those were my grandfather's rules, and I had lived by them for 29 years. By month 6, Victor was running for mayor. It was an aggressive jump, from city council to mayor, but his polling was strong. Young voters loved him. Progressive donors loved him, and I loved him. So, when he asked me to help with his campaign, I said yes. He needed funding, a lot of funding. Mayoral races in D.C. cost millions. I set up a super PAC through my family's foundation. Nothing illegal. Everything was transparent from a legal standpoint, but it was structured, so the money came from the Ashford Foundation without highlighting that I was an Ashford. Victor thought the foundation liked his policies. He had no idea I was the foundation. I leased him a campaign headquarters in a prime location on the 14th Street corridor, 20,000 square feet. He thought he had gotten a sweetheart deal from a friendly landlord. He did not know my trust owned the entire building. I hired his senior staff. I connected him with consultants. I made introductions to donors who mattered. He thought I was just well-connected. He did not know I was the connection. And I told myself it was fine. I told myself I was supporting his vision, that he had earned the help, that this was love expressed through action. But the truth was simpler than that. I was in love, and I was hiding who I was, because I wanted to be loved for who I was, not for what I had. A classic mistake. The first red flag came in March. Victor and I were at his campaign headquarters late at night. He was stressed about polling numbers and staring at spreadsheets like they had personally betrayed him. I need a bigger media buy, he said. But we're tapped out. The foundation maxed out their contribution limit. There are other donors, I said carefully. Who? He snapped. I've called everyone. Nobody wants to commit until they see movement in the polls. What about personal wealth? He looked at me. Taylor, I don't have personal wealth. My parents are accountants. I work in nonprofit development. This campaign is bankrupting me. I could help? With what? He asked. You're a policy consultant. You make, what, $60,000 a year? I had never told him I was a policy consultant. He had assumed it. Something like that, I said. Then how would you help? You're barely covering your own rent. I actually owned my condo outright, but he had seen my Subaru, my off-the-rack clothes, and my refusal to eat at expensive restaurants, and he had built a story around them. In his mind, I was the struggling but passionate policy wonk who believed in his vision. It was not entirely wrong. I did believe in his vision, but I was not struggling. I'll figure something out, I said. That night, I transferred another $200,000 into the super PAC, routed through 3 intermediary organizations, completely legal, completely invisible. Victor's media buy went through. He never asked where the money came from. The second red flag came in May. We were at a donor dinner, a high-dollar event at $1,000 a plate. I had bought a table, 8 seats, and filled it with family friends, people who would donate to Victor's campaign as a favor to me. Victor worked the room brilliantly. He shook hands. He remembered names. He made everyone feel important. But when he reached our table, something shifted. He introduced me to a major donor named William Reeves, CEO of a regional development firm. "This is Taylor," he said, placing his hand on my shoulder. "She's been such a great supporter. She helps with policy research, very detail-oriented. Detail-oriented. Like I was his assistant." Reeves looked at me. "You work for the campaign?" "I volunteer," I said. "Taylor's very passionate," Victor added, squeezing my shoulder. "She does a lot of the boring work nobody else wants to do." The table laughed politely. I forced a smile. Later that night, in his apartment, I brought it up. "Why did you introduce me like that?" "Like what?" "Like I'm your intern." He frowned. "Taylor, you're being sensitive. I was complimenting you. You do help with policy research. You made it sound like that's all I do. Isn't it?" I stared at him. "Victor, I'm your fiancé." "Right. And you're also my policy volunteer. Those aren't mutually exclusive." "You didn't introduce me as your fiancé because it was a donor event." He sighed like I was being difficult. "I need them to see me as professional, serious, not as someone who brings his girlfriend to work functions. We're engaged. And that's personal. This was business." Then he kissed me on the cheek and went to bed. I sat on his couch for 2 hours, trying to convince myself he was right. I told myself I was being overly sensitive. I told myself separating personal and professional was smart. But something in my chest had gone cold. The third red flag came in July. Victor's campaign was gaining momentum. He had pulled ahead in 3 polls. Major endorsements were coming in. He was also getting more public attention. News interviews, podcast appearances, magazine profiles. One profile in D.C. Metro magazine included a photo spread of his authentic life. There were pictures of his apartment, his campaign office, and his jogging route. I was not in any of them. The article said he was focused on his career and not interested in romantic distractions. When I asked him about it, he shrugged. "The photographer wanted to include you." I said no. "Why?" "Because it would raise questions. People would want to know who you are, what you do, how we met. And frankly, Taylor, your story isn't interesting enough to help the campaign." My hands went cold. "My story? You're a policy consultant. You volunteer for progressive causes. That's great, but it doesn't add anything to my narrative." "I'm your fiancé." "Right. And that's why I'm protecting you from scrutiny." "Protecting me?" "If people started digging into your background, asking questions about your family or your finances or your connections, it could create problems." "What kind of problems?" "The kind where people accuse me of nepotism or favoritism or being funded by secret money." I almost laughed. "Victor, you are being funded by secret money." "What?" "The super PAC, the foundation donations, the headquarters lease. Where do you think all of that came from?" He stared at me. "From people who believe in my vision." "Right. People, not person." His eyes narrowed. "Taylor, what are you saying?" I nearly told him everything right there. I nearly explained that I was the Ashford behind the Ashford Foundation, that my family's money had built half of Northwest DC, that I could make or break his campaign with a single phone call. But something stopped me. Pride maybe, stubbornness, or the desperate hope that he would see me without needing to know my bank balance. "Nothing," I said. "Forget it." He studied me for a moment, then smiled. "You're stressed. The campaign is stressful." "I get it. Why don't you take a few days off from volunteering? Recharge. I'll handle things. Take a few days off from supporting the campaign I had funded. Take a few days off from helping the candidate I had built." "Sure," I said. "Good idea." I did not volunteer for the next week. He did not notice. The fourth red flag, the one that should have been the last, came in August. Victor's campaign manager quit suddenly. Personal reasons, family emergency, gone in 48 hours. Victor was panicking. "I need someone immediately," he said. "Someone who knows the campaign inside and out. Someone who can keep everything running." "I could help," I said. "Taylor, no." "Why not?" "This is a professional position. I need someone with experience. I have experience in policy research. This is campaign management, strategy, fundraising, media relations. You've never done any of that." I had been doing all of that for him for 8 months, but he did not see it. He hired someone else, a consultant from New York named Patricia Cole. Patricia was expensive, abrasive, and experienced enough to immediately start questioning every decision the previous manager had made, including the building lease. "This is way too good to be true," Patricia said in a meeting I was volunteering at. "Who's the landlord?" "I don't know," Victor said. "The lease is through some trust. Ashford Holdings or something." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Ashford Holdings? The development company?" "I guess." "Victor, do you know who they are?" "They're one of the biggest private real estate firms in the region. They don't give sweetheart deals to political campaigns." "Well, they did." "Why?" "Maybe they like my housing policy." Patricia looked skeptical, but dropped it. I sat in the corner, invisible, and watched them discuss my family's company like it was a mystery. The engagement party was Victor's idea. "We need to formalize our relationship publicly," he said in September. "Show donors that I'm stable, committed, ready for leadership." "I thought you wanted to keep our relationship private." "That was before. Now I'm the front runner. People want to see the whole package." "The whole package?" "Me and my life partner, someone who supports my vision." "Your fiancé." "Right, but we need to be smart about how we present it." We spent 2 weeks planning. Victor invited 300 people: donors, politicians, journalists, community leaders. I invited no one. "Don't you want your family there?" he asked. "They're low-key people. This isn't their scene." "What about friends?" "I'll celebrate with them separately." The truth was simpler. I did not want my grandfather showing up and accidentally revealing who I was. I did not want my cousin mentioning the hospital board. I did not want anyone connecting the dots. I was still hoping Victor would see me first. The party was held at the Watergate Hotel, Victor's choice. Iconic, historic, perfect for photos. The bill was $23,000. I paid it through a shell company. Victor thought a donor had covered it. The night of the party, I arrived early in my best suit. Navy, well-fitted, nothing flashy. Victor was already there, holding court with reporters. He looked polished in a dark suit, his hair perfect, his smile sharp, the kind of man who photographed like a campaign poster. When he saw me, he smiled, but his eyes flicked to someone behind me, a photographer, and his smile shifted. It became performative. "Taylor," he said, kissing my cheek. "You made it. Of course. Go mingle. I need to finish these interviews." So, I mingled. I talked to donors I had helped recruit, staff I had helped hire, consultants I had connected him with. None of them knew who I was. At 7 o'clock, Victor took the stage. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he said. "This campaign has been incredible. And it's because of people like you, people who believe in a better D.C." The room applauded. "I also want to acknowledge someone special. My dear friend Taylor, who has been such a wonderful supporter." He pointed at me. "Dear friend, not fiancé, not partner, friend." The room clapped politely. I stood there and felt something crack in my chest. Victor continued. "Taylor has helped with policy research, volunteer coordination, all the unglamorous work that makes campaigns run. She's been a great asset to the team." Asset to the team. I looked at his hand. The engagement ring I had bought him, 3 months' salary by traditional standards, though that calculation did not mean much for me, was on his finger. But he had not mentioned our engagement. After the speech, I found him in the back hallway. "Victor? Taylor, great event, right? You called me your friend." "What?" "You introduced me as your dear friend, not your fiancé." He blinked. "Oh, right. I thought about saying fiancé, but it felt too personal for a campaign event. This is our engagement party. It's a donor appreciation event that doubles as our engagement party. You invited 300 people to celebrate our engagement and didn't mention we're engaged." His expression hardened. "Taylor, don't do this. Not tonight." "Do what?" "Make everything about you. This is my night, my campaign, my moment." "I thought it was our moment." "It would be if you had done anything worth acknowledging." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Excuse me?" "Look, Taylor, I appreciate what you do. I really do. But let's be honest. You're a volunteer. A policy researcher. You're not a major donor. You're not a political operative. You're not someone these people need to know. Victor, I need to be smart about optics. If I introduce you as my fiancé, people will ask questions. What does she do? How much does she make? Is she using me for political access? I can't afford those questions right now. So you're hiding me. I'm protecting both of us. By pretending I don't exist. By keeping our personal relationship separate from my professional life. He touched my arm. Taylor, please. Try to understand. This campaign is everything to me. I need people to see me as strong and independent. Someone who earned this, not someone who got help from a girlfriend. I'm not your girlfriend. I'm your fiancé. And that's beautiful. But tonight, can you please just let me have this moment? I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I saw someone I did not recognize. Sure, I said quietly. Have your moment. I walked back into the ballroom. That was when I saw the envelope on my chair. The black leather envelope with the thank you note about my generous donation, and I knew he had put it there. A private joke. A reminder that my role was to write checks, not stand beside him. So I opened it in front of everyone. I read the note. I felt 300 pairs of eyes on me, and then I left. Garrett called me at midnight. It's done, he said. Super PAC funding terminated. Building lease voided. Staff contracts canceled. Campaign account frozen. He'll wake up to a very different financial reality tomorrow. What about the media consultants? They're pulling their teams. Breach of contract. They'll announce it publicly. Makes them look principled. Good. Garrett was quiet for a moment. Taylor, you should know, this is going to destroy his campaign. He has nothing without your infrastructure. I know. You're sure you want to do this? I thought about the envelope on my chair. I thought about the way he had called me, his dear friend, in front of 300 people. I thought about 8 months of pretending I was small so he could feel big. Yes. Okay. One more thing. Your grandfather asked me to prepare a press statement in case this becomes news. What kind of statement? The kind that clarifies the Ashford Foundation's reasons for withdrawing support. Moral character concerns, misrepresentation of endorsement, that sort of thing. Hold it. Don't release it unless he makes this public first. Understood. I hung up and sat in the dark, watching the Washington Monument blink red in the distance. The next morning, my phone exploded. Texts from Victor. Calls. Voicemails. Taylor, what happened? The campaign account is frozen. The headquarters is being evicted. The consultants are backing out. Taylor, call me. I did not answer. Instead, I met with Naomi at Georgetown University Hospital. She was waiting in her office, a corner suite on the 15th floor with a view of the Potomac. Dr. Naomi Ashford, Johns Hopkins Medical School. 15 years in cardiac surgery, chief of staff for 3 years. Taylor, she said, standing with a smile. I'm thrilled you're joining the board, though I suspect this is going to make waves. Why? Because you're an Ashford, and you've been invisible for years. People are going to ask questions. Let them. She studied me. What happened? Someone needed to learn what I'm worth. The fiancé? Ex-fiancé. Naomi's smile went sharp. Good. He never deserved you. The board announcement went out that afternoon. Georgetown University Hospital was pleased to welcome Taylor Ashford to its board of directors. Miss Ashford served as managing director of the Ashford Foundation and brought extensive experience in urban development policy and philanthropic strategy. It was a small announcement, buried in the hospital's press releases. But in D.C., small announcements reached the right people quickly. By 5 o'clock, 3 journalists had called me. By 6, someone had connected the dots between Taylor Ashford and Ashford Holdings. By 7, someone had connected Ashford Holdings to Victor's campaign headquarters. By 8, the story broke. D.C. Mayoral candidate loses major financial backing after personal dispute. Sources confirmed that the Ashford Foundation, primary funder of Victor Chen's mayoral campaign, has withdrawn all support following an undisclosed incident. The foundation, controlled by the prominent Ashford family, had contributed nearly $850,000 to Chen's campaign through a super PAC. Taylor Ashford, granddaughter of former Commerce Secretary Harrison Ashford III, was recently engaged to Chen. The engagement has reportedly been terminated. Victor called me 17 times that night. I did not answer. Day 2 brought the collapse. Victor's campaign released a statement. I am deeply disappointed by the Ashford Foundation's decision to withdraw support. Their funding was never conditional on my personal relationship with Miss Ashford, and I question the ethics of using donor money as leverage in a private dispute. It was the wrong move. Garrett released our counterstatement immediately. The Ashford Foundation withdrew support due to concerns about Mr. Chen's character and integrity. Our funding decisions are based on alignment with our values. Recent events revealed a pattern of behavior inconsistent with those values. We wish Mr. Chen well in his future endeavors. Pattern of behavior, character concerns, the kind of language that makes donors nervous. By afternoon, 3 more major donors had pulled out. By evening, his campaign manager, Patricia Cole, had resigned. Her statement was damning. I joined the Chen campaign, believing in his vision for D.C. However, I cannot in good conscience continue working for a candidate who misrepresents his relationships and funding sources to voters. The public deserves honesty from its leaders. Victor's campaign was hemorrhaging. Staff quit. Volunteers disappeared. Polling dropped 12 points in 3 days, and he still did not understand why. The lunch was his campaign's attempt at damage control, a grassroots supporter appreciation event at the Hamilton. 50 donors, small dollar contributors. The kind of people who gave $25 or $50 because they believed in his message. He had advertised it as intimate and authentic. I was not invited, but Garrett called me that morning. Taylor, something you should know. Victor is planning to make a speech at his lunch event today. About what? About you. What kind of speech? The kind where he paints himself as the victim, and you as the vindictive ex who sabotaged his campaign. He's going to position this as an old money power play. Powerful family trying to destroy a self-made candidate. My jaw tightened. He's going to lie. Publicly. Yes. Then I need to be there. I was hoping you'd say that. I'll meet you there. Bring David from our litigation team. And Taylor. What? Wear the navy suit, the one you wore to your grandfather's state dinner. Why? Because you need to look like who you actually are. I arrived at the Hamilton at noon. The event was in a private room with glass walls. I could see Victor inside, smiling and shaking hands with supporters. He looked confident, energized, like he thought this would be his comeback moment. Garrett and David were waiting outside. David Chen, no relation to Victor, had been with Morrison and Hale for 8 years. He was a former DOJ prosecutor, the kind of attorney who made judges nervous. Everything's ready, he said, handing me a black leather folder. Documentation is thorough. We have receipts, wire transfers, lease agreements, communication logs, everything time-stamped and notarized. And the other thing? It's handled. I walked into the room. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Victor was mid-sentence with a donor when he froze at the sight of me. I found a seat in the back. Garrett and David flanked me. Victor recovered quickly. His public smile clicked into place. Taylor, he said. What a surprise. I didn't know you were coming. I wasn't invited, but I thought I should hear what you have to say. His smile flickered. Of course. You're always welcome. He turned back to his supporters, but his movements were less confident now. He kept glancing at me. Lunch was served. Salad, salmon, wine. I did not touch mine. At 12:30, Victor stood to speak. Thank you all for being here, he began. These past few days have been difficult. As many of you know, my campaign faced unexpected financial challenges when a major donor withdrew support. Sympathetic murmurs moved through the crowd. What you might not know is that this donor was my former fiancé, Taylor Ashford. He gestured toward me. Taylor and I had a relationship. I cared about her deeply. But when I chose to keep our personal lives separate from my campaign, when I chose to maintain my independence and my integrity, she used her family's wealth to punish me. The room gasped. She withdrew nearly $1 million in funding. She evicted my campaign from our headquarters. She used her connections to destroy relationships with consultants and media partners, all because I wouldn't let her control me. His eyes were wet now. Actual tears. This is what happens when old money tries to control public office. When a self-made candidate refuses to be owned, powerful families try to destroy him. Applause broke out. Some people were standing. Victor looked directly at me. Taylor, if you're here to intimidate me, it won't work. I'm not afraid of you or your family's money. I'm going to rebuild this campaign, and I'm going to win, because D.C. deserves a leader who can't be bought or controlled. The room erupted. I waited for the noise to settle. Then I stood. May I respond? Victor blinked. This isn't really a debate format. It's not a debate, I said. It's a clarification. I walked to the front of the room. Garrett handed me the black folder. My name is Taylor Ashford. Many of you might not know me. That was intentional. I prefer to work behind the scenes. I support candidates quietly and let the work speak for itself. I opened the folder. For 8 months, I supported Victor's campaign, not just financially, but structurally. I leased his campaign headquarters through my family's trust. I connected him with consultants. I helped develop his policy platform. I introduced him to donors who became major contributors. I pulled out the first document. Here's the wire transfer showing the initial super PAC funding, $200,000, February 14th. I held it up so the room could see. Here is the lease agreement for the campaign headquarters. Ashford Holdings to Chen for mayor campaign. Below market rate. $14,000 a month for a space worth $40,000. I lifted another document. Here are the consultant contracts. Media strategy, digital advertising, opposition research, all paid through the Ashford Foundation. All at my direction. The room was silent now. Victor's tears had stopped. Victor told you I withdrew funding to punish him for maintaining his independence. That is not accurate. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo. This is the envelope I found on my chair at our engagement party. An engagement party he invited 300 people to, but never once mentioned we were engaged. I showed them the thank you note, the one mocking me for being a generous donor. He put this there as a joke, a reminder that my role was to fund his campaign, not stand beside him as his partner. Victor's face had gone white. He called me his dear friend in his speech that night, not his fiancé. Friend, because acknowledging our relationship would make him look weak. Dependent, less impressive to donors. I looked at him. You told me I wasn't interesting enough to help your campaign. You told me my story wasn't worth telling. You told me I should stay in the background where I belonged. Taylor, I didn't mean you meant exactly that, I said. And that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion about me, but you are not entitled to my money, my family's connections, or my continued support while you humiliate me publicly. I turned back to the crowd. I did not withdraw funding to punish Victor for being independent. I withdrew funding because he treated me like an ATM while presenting himself as self-made. He built his campaign on my family's infrastructure while telling voters he had done it all himself. I pulled out one final document. This is a statement from Patricia Cole, Victor's former campaign manager. She resigned because, and I'm quoting here, candidate Chen systematically misrepresented the sources and extent of his campaign funding, creating ethical concerns about transparency and honesty with voters. I set the document on the table. So yes, I withdrew my family's support, not because Victor refused to be controlled, but because he was dishonest. With voters. With donors. With me. Silence. Then someone in the back started clapping. Slowly at first. Then others joined. Not everyone, but enough. I walked toward the door. Garrett and David followed. Victor called after me. Taylor, wait, please. Let me explain. I stopped and turned. You've had 8 months to explain. 8 months to see me. 8 months to introduce me as your fiancé instead of your intern. You made your choice. I made a mistake. You made a lot of mistakes, but the biggest one was thinking I'd stay invisible forever. I walked out of the Hamilton into the bright October sunlight. Behind me, I heard chaos, shouting, crying. Garrett put his hand on my shoulder. Well done. Is it over? Politically? Yes, his campaign is finished. But there's going to be fallout. Media coverage, maybe legal action from donors who feel misled. Let them sue. We have documentation for everything. And personally, I looked at him. What do you mean? How do you feel? I thought about it. 8 months of supporting someone who saw me as a tool. 8 months of being small so he could feel big. 8 months of believing that if I just gave enough, did enough, stayed patient enough, he would eventually see me. Relieved, I said finally. I feel relieved. The media firestorm lasted a week. Victor gave 3 interviews trying to defend himself. Each one made things worse. He called me controlling, manipulative, vindictive. He suggested my family was trying to buy political influence. He implied I had threatened him. Each accusation was carefully documented and disproven by Garrett's team. Bank records showed every transaction was voluntary. Emails showed I had never asked for political favors. Text messages proved he had requested and received every bit of support I had given. By day 5, his remaining donors had withdrawn. By day 7, his primary opponent had pulled ahead by 23 points. By day 10, Victor dropped out of the race. His statement was brief. After careful consideration, I have decided to suspend my mayoral campaign. This race has become about my personal life rather than my vision for D.C. I wish the best for all candidates moving forward. He did not apologize. He did not acknowledge the misrepresentation. He simply disappeared from public life. 3 months later, I sat in my grandfather's study. Harrison Ashford III was 81 years old and still sharp as ever. "You handled it well," he said, pouring bourbon. "Better than I would have at your age. I made mistakes. Only one. Just one. You trusted someone who hadn't earned it." I looked down at the glass in my hand. I loved him. Love and trust aren't the same thing. Love is what you feel. Trust is what you build. He never built it. He handed me the bourbon. "Your grandmother taught me that. When we got married, she had more money than I did, old railroad family. She could have held it over me. Could have made me feel small. She didn't? Never once. Because she understood that marriage is a partnership. Money doesn't matter. Power doesn't matter. What matters is whether you make each other bigger or smaller." He took a sip of his drink. "Victor made you smaller every day. And you let him because you thought that was what love required. I wanted him to see me. He did see you. He saw an opportunity. Someone he could use without acknowledging. That's not love, Taylor. That's exploitation." He set down his glass. "Your grandmother used to say the truest test of character is how people treat those they think can't help them. Victor thought you couldn't help him. Or rather, he thought you could only help him by staying invisible. So he treated you like you were nothing. And when he found out who you really were, he still treated you like nothing, because that is who he is." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, he asked, "What now?" "I don't know. Focus on the foundation. Maybe actually do policy work instead of funding other people's campaigns." "Good. You're better at policy than you ever were at politics." "Was I bad at politics?" "No, but you're honest. Politics requires performance. You hate performing." He refilled my glass. "Here's my advice, since you didn't ask for it. Find someone who wants you visible. Someone who is proud to stand beside you, not in front of you or behind you. Someone who makes you bigger just by being there." "Did you find that?" "I married it. 53 years. Best decision I ever made." I left his house that night and drove through Georgetown, past the university where Victor and I used to walk, past the Thai restaurant where we had our first date, past the apartment where he had lived when I thought I had found something real. And I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret. Just the quiet certainty that I had done the right thing. 6 months after the engagement party, I received a letter. It came in a plain envelope with no return address. Inside was a single handwritten page. "Taylor, I know I don't deserve a response. I probably don't deserve to write this, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I've spent 6 months in therapy trying to understand why I treated you the way I did. My therapist says it's about control, insecurity, imposter syndrome, and fear that if people knew I'd had help, they would think I didn't deserve my success. None of that excuses what I did. You gave me everything. Your money, your time, your trust, your love, and I repaid you by making you invisible, by pretending you didn't matter, by treating you like a resource instead of a person. I destroyed us. I destroyed my campaign. I destroyed any chance of being the leader I claimed I wanted to be. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking that you know this. I see you now. I saw you then too, if I'm honest. I just didn't want to admit how much I needed you, because needing you made me feel weak. I was wrong. You weren't the one who needed to be invisible. I was. Take care of yourself, Taylor. You deserve someone who sees you from the start. Victor." I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. Not because I wanted to forgive him, but because it was proof that the truth had finally landed. And sometimes, that is all the closure you need. 1 year later, I met someone new. His name was Ryan. He was an urban planner, and I met him at a Georgetown policy conference. He asked about my work, and for once, I told him the truth. I told him I ran my family's foundation and focused on affordable housing development. Ashford Foundation, he said. You're that Ashford? Yes. I've been trying to get a meeting with you for 3 months. Your housing model is brilliant. We talked for 2 hours about policy, about vision, about what cities could become if we built them right. On our third date, I told him about Victor. Ryan listened quietly, then said, That must have been incredibly painful. It was. Do you regret it? Walking away? No, I said. I regret taking so long. He smiled. Good. Because I need you to know something. I don't date invisible people. If we do this, I'm going to brag about you. A lot. Obnoxiously, probably. Is that okay? I laughed for the first time in months. Yeah, I said. That's okay.